We're here today at the COVD meeting in Jacksonville, Florida, and I want to thank Dr. Bob Sanet for coming along and being part of the Heritage Series. It's a wonderful series where we're going to people who are foundational and developmental in our profession so that those who come after have a chance to meet and know people in the profession and what they've given. So thank you for coming by today, Bob.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for providing an opportunity with me to share my story.
Great. So where I want to start the story is, how'd you get into optometry? Although I think I know that there's parts that come before.
Yes.
So,
I was a learning disabled student all through school. I was in special classes from second grade through graduating high school. At that time, there wasn't any diagnosis per se of learning disabled or ADHD or any of those diagnoses that are floating around now. But I wasn't learning. I wasn't reading well. I wasn't comprehending well. I wasn't really doing well in anything in life. And I was with just a conglomerate of kids, troublemaking kids, and whoever didn't fit, I was in that group for learning problems. And then then I would not have even been able to get into college, but I was fortunate enough to be at a time during the 60s when there was something called open enrollment, so that anybody who wanted to go to college could get into college. So I got into college. My first semester was a 1.6. My second semester was a 1.9. I was on academic probation. I probably would have been kicked out of school. I was working as a bartender at nights to put myself through school. And then I was in a very, very severe automobile accident where I broke all the bones in my head. I had frontal lobe damage, parietal lobe damage. I had a lot of damage in a lot of different areas. I spent the next 2 years having 20 surgeries on my head to put it back together again. I had never had my eyes examined in my life. After the accident, actually my upper lid was sewn to my cheek because I had no lower lid at that time. And then when they opened up my eye, I saw double. When I had both eyes opened at the same time, which was about 7 months after the accident, I actually went to an ophthalmologist who gave me some prism, helped me to fuse at that time. But the people who made the glasses, an optometrist, said, it's a really nice profession. Why don't you think about this profession? And it's like, why not? I don't have anything else to do with my life. So I went back to college, completed college, applied to optometry schools, got rejected at most of the optometry schools that I wanted to go to. I wanted to actually stay in the Northeast where I was from. I got rejected. Finally, I got accepted to the Los Angeles College of Optometry at that time, which is now the Southern California College of Optometry, is now Ketchum University.
Right.
Because there were more spots than applicants. They had 3 spots available because my overall GPA at that time was a 2.2 for the 4 years of university to get my degree. So I got in there, and that's how I got into optometry, not knowing much about vision training at that time.
I thought I understood you actually had gotten some vision therapy as part of what you had before you got to optometry school.
No,
not yet.
Not yet. So I entered optometry school wearing 16 diopters vertical prism, 8 base down on my left eye, 8 base up on my right eye. I wore that for approximately 5 years and entered optometry school. At the end of my first year, beginning of my second year somewhere, there was a field trip to Allergan Pharmaceuticals. And they had 2 speakers. One speaker, I couldn't tell you who that speaker was at all. The other speaker for 20 minutes was a doctor by the name of Donald Getz. I can't remember anything he spoke about, but except for, I love what I do. I make a difference in people's lives, and I get paid well for it. And I said, that sounds like something I would like to do, to make a difference in people's lives, because I was very socially active during my time at university. So that's how I first got introduced. I was in LA, and then I went to one meeting and to another meeting, and then I met a doctor by the name of Ralph Schrock at one of the meetings. And even though there were people much closer, and even Don, who I respected a lot, and there were a lot of good practitioners in LA, something about Ralph Schrock blew me away. So I actually drove 3 hours from Los Angeles to San Diego. While I was a student, I had people, doesn't matter if it's on tape or not on tape, and you can even include this part, and I used to have people sign that I was there for the day.
Yeah, they're not going to take your degree back.
They're not going to, exactly, it's too late now. So I used to have people sign me into clinic. They used to call and make up patients who wouldn't show, so there wouldn't be a problem. And I used to drive 3 hours down to San Diego. I used to have 3 sessions of VT a day. I would have a session of VT. After some time, he would allow me to work with patients as a therapist. I'd have another session of VT. He'd allow me to work with some patients again or observe in the VT. Then I'd have another session of VT. I would go to dinner with Dr. Schrock, sleep at his house. We would talk more about VT and optometry. And then the next morning, I would wake up very, very early and drive back to Los Angeles and have my next day of school. And I did that for about 10 months.
And what year?
That would be 1972, 73, in that area.
But the second year student?
Yeah, like second year student, between my second and third year. During my second year, I think, of optometry school. So long ago, it's hard to remember, but I think my second year. Not my third year for sure, my second year.
Yeah. What kind of changes did you begin to notice?
Well, the first change I noticed was that my measured hyper went from 16 to 14, then it went to 12, then I went to 10, so I kept on reducing my prescription. My stereopsis improved dramatically, but for me, really, the most dramatic thing wasn't going actually from 16 diopters of vertical prism to 2 diopters of vertical prism in my glasses, but that I could read well for the first time in my life. Yeah. It was a remarkable experience for me, memorable, truly memorable, to realize that I was reading for an extended period of time, be able to concentrate well on what I was reading. My mind didn't wander anymore. I wasn't losing my place when I was reading anymore. My comprehension was much better. I went from near the bottom of my optometry school to, actually it had to be my beginning of my second year, because I remember I was number 1 in my class in neurology. Got the number 1 grade. I had never gotten an A in my life until my second year of optometry school.
That's fantastic.
So for me, vision training isn't something just that interested me.
Yeah.
It was truly life-changing for me in many, many ways. But the biggest way for me was the ability to read with comfort, with comprehension for an extended period of time. And everything else to me is a bonus over that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You were involved in, was it the summer intern thing in New York, or did you do a residency there? What brought you to New York? I know you're from the area.
Yeah, I was from New York. I went to school. That's where I completed my university at Hofstra University. Like I say, I wanted to go to school in Boston. They didn't want me. I went to school. I wanted to go to Philadelphia. They didn't want me, et cetera, et cetera. And I can't blame them with the 2.2 GPA. Is not exactly an impressive GPA in getting accepted to optometry school. But what happened is my senior year my last year of optometry school, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't have a job. I didn't have many prospects. I wrote letters to all of the society presidents in California. Actually, Linda typed them all out on the days before computers, one by one with carbon paper and all that. And I got no responses at all. So I was sort of floundering at the time. And then I heard about the Gazelle Institute of Child Development, and I applied for to be accepted into their program. They did not accept me into the program, and then I was really like, what am I going to do? And then I saw a notice, actually a poor copy of something saying new residency, vision training residency at the College of Optometry in New York, the Optometric Center of New York, actually. Right. It was actually before it was a university. So I said, I got nothing else, let me apply. So I was, myself and 3 other optometrists with the first true residency program. They had some internships there.
Right,
they had what they called a residency program there, but it was 3 months and you had to pay. We were the first group of true residents where we were full-time for a full year, and there was salary included in the residency as well, so we could live. So again, 4 of us, myself, Dr. Stan Applebaum, Dr. Ken Kozlow, who practices in Israel right now, and the Dr. Benem Harvey Estrin, who stayed in New York, in Long Island, and he stayed
went on faculty for a while too.
Exactly.
What year was that?
That was, we graduated, that was 74, 75 was the residency. So that was the first vision training residency in the United States.
Yeah, so you and I were at SUNY at the same time.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because you were doing your residency, I was a first-year student.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so we didn't really cross paths very much, but we were there at the same time. I had that feeling that we had shared that in common. You mentioned your wife, Linda, of many, many years, and who's also contributed a tremendous amount to the profession. Where did you meet?
Since you mentioned we've married a long time, this year was our 46th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. She's spectacular. Yes, she has contributed a lot. So now we're back in the 60s again.
Yeah.
If you can imagine Bob Sanet with hair to here.
It's pretty easy to imagine.
And a big mustache, like the Fu Manchu type mustache, and actually dark hair and a full head of hair, which had to be thinned when I went to the barber shop. They used to thin it before they.
I remember the thinning shears first.
Don't need those anymore, obviously. At that time, I was very socially active. I was on the student council. I was doing a lot of protesting. I was marching.
Was this back at Hofstra?
Hofstra University in New York. This is 1968.
And by the way, you were probably at Hofstra while my mother was at Hofstra.
That's very interesting.
She went back to get her law degree. So
that's interesting. So, small world type of stuff. At that time, I was also coordinating tutorial programs at inner city high schools in Long Island for people who needed tutoring, who weren't able to get those services anywhere else. Linda volunteered as a math tutor. Mm-hmm. Linda at that time did not have any money at all. She was working 2 or 3 jobs to help herself put herself through college. So I would drive her from place to place because she didn't have a car because she always took a bus. We had nothing in common at all in a sense. I was upper middle class, Jewish. She was summa cum laude. I was
we've heard
magna cum screw up.
Yeah.
I was just I was in the 60s fully in every way possible.
Those of us who were around there know what that means, and it's fine if the others have to go Google something now.
Okay,
it's all right.
So it's actually a funny story. So I'm driving to and from and doing to and from and to and from and to and from, and I finally decided I'm going to ask her out. So I call her up and I say, would you like to go to a peace concert at Madison Square Garden? Jimi Hendrix is there, and Richie Havens is going to be there, and the Voices of East Harlem are going to be there, and a lot of the groups at the time. So she says, sure. She, on the other hand, I wish Linda was sitting next to me, thinks I'm selling tickets because I'm on the student council. So I call her up the day before and I say, okay, I'll pick you up at 7. Silence. More silence. Then, okay. She didn't think she was going on a date, and then she didn't know how to get out of the date. And
that's a good thing, Bob. That's a good thing.
And we had a first date. It didn't work actually out that well. It took me 3 months of calling every day to get a second date. Finally,
Were you still driving her and you just didn't know?
Yeah, we talked. Yeah, I was driving her, and we talked, and it was nice, but it was just like she just had broken up with an engagement, and she wasn't looking for a boyfriend, and I was head over heels for Linda, and finally I wore her down, and I got a second date, and after that everything went well, but to get that second date was tough. On another note, which I'd really like to speak about, we had nothing in common in terms of what I realize now are all the superficial things.
Right.
And even religion became superficial. She was raised an Italian Catholic in background and socioeconomic because we cared about people, we cared about making a difference in the world. Right. Our hearts were the same, even though things that, like I say, people say are most important in a long-term marriage. All the other stuff sort of fades away if you really have common goals and you really care about, making a difference.
Right. So you go to California for your optometry school. You come to New York for your residency. You do eventually end up out in Lemon Grove. How does that all happen?
That's another big story. But you get to be my age, you have lots of stories. So now I'm going to graduate the residency. I also am not sure what I'm going to do. So I was offered a position to stay on at SUNY at that time a nice salary. It's hard to imagine, but that was $24,000 in those days. It was a lot.
Money.
It's nice money, plus medical benefits, plus health benefits and everything. And I was just considering that strongly. I then came to a COVD meeting, and I saw Don Getz again, and I said, "What's doing in California?" He says, "This opportunity in San Diego." Amarita Treganza, who was my first boss, who was the first president of COVD, is ill. She's in the hospital, and her partner is looking for someone to come in and help because at that time they didn't even know if she would survive. So I wrote a letter to Dr. Benema Robert Nauer, who was her partner at that time, and he wrote me back and said, "Oh, I've had your resume here ever since you wrote it as a senior student. It's been in my desk for a year.
Wow.
Why don't you come out?" I went out. I walked into the office, and it was like, this is where I'd like to be. It was just, though people who know me, like yourself, Paul, a lot of my decisions aren't made on deep thought and left brain issues. It's on emotion, it's on feeling, and I walked in and I said, this is where I want to be. I took a position for 50% of what I would have made in New York for $12,000 a year instead of $24,000 a year, with no health benefits, no medical benefits, because it's just where I wanted to be. And for me, personally, it was the best decision I ever made in my life, was to not think about it in terms of the money issues, or the issues of that, just where I fit.
Yeah. Amarita obviously got healthy, came back, and was quite an influence in how you practiced and what you did. Talk a little bit about Amarita. And I know both you and I are probably the only two that call her Amarita because she told us to. Everybody else called her Trigger Treganza.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Trigger, the name Trigger, first of all, and I'll come to my story. Actually, Skeffington called her Trigger, gave her the name because she was quick on the trigger.
Yeah.
She was someone who was an actress on the stage before she ever became an optometrist. She was regal in every sense of the
Absolutely.
word. She had silver hair, which was braided on top of her head, and then in the braid was silver rings as well. And she walked straight, she walked slowly, she spoke in a measured manner. And here's this wild man from New York who comes out very undisciplined, very 60s. And she was the most difficult teacher I've ever had in my life. She was strong with me, not unfair, which sometimes people confuse unfair with strong.
Right.
She was clear, she was direct, and she slowed me down. She gave me organization. She helped with my thinking. I mean, aside from the obvious stuff of learning vision training procedures and stuff like that, the personal growth was enormous. To tell a quick Amarita story, So now here's the New Yorker, and I come down to the office and say, Amrita, I got this patient, and this patient has blah, 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 blah. And she would sit there, and I'd be, And I said, so what do you think I should do? And she'd say, you've spoken so quickly. I haven't understood anything you've said. Could you please begin again? And I would be sitting there with smoke coming out of my ears because I was so upset. But she just was calm and patient, but she saw the potential in me. And she realized that passion without discipline doesn't accomplish a lot. And certainly I didn't need any more passion, because I was very, very passionate. But what I needed was someone to give me structure, someone to give me organization, someone to slow me down, and give me more direction and better thinking skills. So she was, like I say, by far the most difficult person or teacher I've ever had by far, but also one of the one or two best teachers I ever had for the same exact reason, because she was not easy with me.
And I have a sense, I'm sure you have a sense, and that's why you're telling it this way, you would not be the teacher or mentor you are now without having had all of those prior experiences with her.
No question. I mean, she was, like I said, she was just organized, she was on top of things, she was thoughtful, she was slow, she was analytical, she was a great communicator.
Yeah.
But she was not easy. Just another story, I don't know if this will be included or not included, but so now I'm doing my first parent conference. I'm ready for it. I don't know, 3 months in. By the way, very interesting thing she did. I followed her around everywhere. I was paid to do nothing for about a month or two, and all I did was sit in on her conferences, sit in on her exams, watch her do this and that. And aside from the optometric part, which I had some good skills when I entered, the communication skills that she had were phenomenal, and I learned a lot. So now it's, I don't know, 2 months later, 3 months later, I don't remember how long, I'm ready to do my own first conference. So there I am, two parents sitting there. She comes, the first thing she does is she takes a tape recorder. In those days, you had big tapers, and she puts it on right in between us to record it. And then she's sitting behind me, and I hear scratches as she's writing. And I'm trying to have this parent conference, and I'm looking at the parents in the eyes, and this tape recorder's here, and she's behind me recording. It was a challenging first conference, but again, she let me listen to the tapes. She critiqued me on what I did in a constructive way. And you're right, there was absolutely no way at all that I would be sitting here having this discussion with you without many great mentors I had, and one for sure was Amrita. She had her place in helping me to be who I am today, no question.
And we won't make this all about Amrita, but I've got two quick things I'll share with you, and I think we've spoken about these before. My first interaction with her was at the Somerville conference. She was an attendee, and the only way you got there, you couldn't just attend, you had to be a speaker first, so I was there, and it was actually Gary Edding and myself who were the speakers that time. Did the whole thing, everything's done, and she pulls me aside. Are you open to some constructive criticism? And you knew what was coming. And for the next 3 hours, she talked to me from the actor's point of view, from the presenter point of view, and to this day, many of the things she said fundamentally helped me change how I present, how I talk, and what I do. So I think we have that in common. And then the other quick thing about Amrita, at the very first joint conference, and I don't know if you attended that, the JCTCO Joint Conference on Theoretical and Clinical Optometry up at Pacific College of Optometry, and it was an OEP Pacific event. she was the person who had to demonstrate doing the OEP 21-point analytical. She did the entire thing with all of us watching on stage. It had been set up at a stage event. They put a whole refracting lane there and everything. She finished. She came up and sat down next to me, and she said, "That's the hardest thing I've ever had to do." Baxter Swardell was supposed to have done it, and there was a health issue or travel issue or something, and she was pressed into service without having a lot of time to prepare it. And it was absolutely fascinating to watch her have to do this strict OEP 21-point black book thing and her comments on it.
Thanks for sharing. Those are two stories I didn't know, so I'm always looking for new stories.
Yeah, wonderful woman. And again, just to sort of put a bow on that, you said it, but to understand that she was the first president of COVD.
At a time when there was almost no women in the organization.
Absolutely.
I would say that there were probably 5, maybe,
Right.
women in COVD at that time.
But I think you'll agree in the way I'm going to word it. We don't ever say the first woman president.
No.
She was the first president of COVD.
Correct.
And in every rights earned it because she was the right person in the right place at the right time with all the different entities that came together to form COVD. And we as a group are honored, all the people in this aspect of the profession, that she was there at that time and we had those interactions with her.
And I think she would have thought about herself, thanks for sharing that, I think she would have thought about herself in the same way as the first president, that she wasn't much into being the first woman this or the first woman this, she just did by example, and she happened to be a woman, and obviously a very strong woman, and a very competent woman, but she just saw herself as, you know, as an optometrist.
Right. So we've laid a wonderful foundation. But I think there's a couple of areas I want to move into. The first will really be you've really influenced a tremendous number of people through your teaching, and it started in smaller meetings, but the kinds of courses you put together, the travel, the international work, and this kind of stuff. I'd like you to talk about how it started, how it evolved, and just give me a little bit of a sense of why? What drove you? What's driven you to do a lot of this?
As I shared before, and I'll say it again, and I know you know me very well, many things are on impulse. I don't have a 1-year plan, a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, or a 10-year plan. That's just not me. So I never really thought about speaking at all. And then there was a meeting in Southern California where you could give 10-minute papers. So somebody said, "Would you give a paper?" So, not really. I don't really care to give a paper. Come on, give a paper. So I don't even remember what the paper was about. I finished presenting the paper, and then at the coffee break, Dr. Manuel Homer Hendrickson, who was president of OEP for, I don't know, maybe 10 years or maybe more.
I don't know if you're president or executive director.
Executive director.
In the leadership of OEP.
For a very long time, and Jerry Getman came up to me and said, "We want to talk to you." And me, again, is because, again, I have not a strong frontal lobe and not a lot of filters. It's like, crap, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
I'm cleaning it up a little bit, but crap, what did I do wrong? So now they said, come to the Dr. Hendrickson's room, we want to talk to you privately. So here I am, they're walking, and I'm walking behind them, thinking, I don't know. I just didn't know. And they said, "How would you like to be one of the graduate clinical seminar presenters for OEP? We have Dr. John Streff, we have Jerry Getman, Dr. Getman, we have Dr. Toby Greenstein, and you'll be the 4th. Do you think you can do a 2-day seminar?"
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
After having done a 10-minute.
The 10 minutes. That's the only other talk. Sure.
Yeah.
That's me also.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, sure, I can do that. And then I went home with Linda. Like,
Thank God you had messed up frontal lobe, right?
What exactly? If I'd have thought about it, I would have said no for sure.
Right.
It's like, no way am I competent enough to do a 2-day seminar. So I go home with Linda, and then I call up Ralph Schrock, and I say, Ralph, this is the opportunity I have, blah, 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 and I said, what should I do? He said, talk about what you do.
Yeah.
So I took that advice about 99%, but not 100%, and that's a story, that's I think an important story as well. So I go up to my first regional clinical seminar was in Oregon, in Portland, and I presented a day and a half, 10 hours. At 9.5 hours, I was done. I literally looked at the audience and said, I don't know anymore. I'm done. As now I could, you want a 2-day seminar, you want a 5-day seminar, you want a 10-day seminar, it just flows out. But at that time, I was done. I didn't know anymore. But I didn't take Ralph Schrock's advice. Now, I'll back up for a little bit. Everything I did, except for one thing I thought about on the airplane going up. Mm-hmm. And I said, boy, this would be a great procedure to put in. It sounds like really cool, and I think I'll do it. And I got a question on that particular procedure by a doctor who was on staff at Pacific University at that time, by the name of Dr. Paul Cole. Mm-hmm. And he asked me this question, and I said, I started to answer. First of all, I didn't like the question because it was something I really didn't do, so I couldn't speak about it in the same way. But as I'm explaining it, I realized it was wrong.
Yeah, oops.
I had not thought it through, and I had to say in front of the group the story on, I thought about this on the plane and stuff like that, and that was a good lesson for me. So to just speak about what I do, and it's really what I've done from that moment to this moment now, I don't know, 30 years later of giving presentations, is I just talk about what I do. It's rather easy to speak in that sense, because I don't need to do a lot of research, although I do bring in some studies and this, that, and the other thing. In the same way, I'm sure it's very, very easy for you to present the material you present, because for 25 years you did this in your private practice, and all you do is you talk about what you did, and you bring in certain things and you learn certain things and you modify it, but it's not like you prepare the lecture and then you have to read the slides so you don't forget your information. That's not the way I present. I know that's not the way you present. I've attended your seminars as well. So that's how I got into speaking, and little by little by little by little, more and more and more and more speaking. And then it got to a point in my practice where I had to decide, do I want to try to keep dividing my attention between private practice and speaking, and private practice and speaking was getting challenging, to say the least, in terms of time, in terms of energy. And there was a moment where I actually woke up one day and with an epiphany, and the epiphany was, I want to touch 1 million lives. And I realized I couldn't do that in private practice. That I had to teach people about what I did. So if I could teach 5,000 people and each had 200 patients, I have my 1 million. And if I stayed in San Diego, if I had 10,000, it would have been a lot. Right. So in the same way you, Paul, have presented to people, and now those people are presenting to other people, and those people are presenting to other people, and how many patients they have, I would not be surprised as well. I think I may have already, if not hopefully before I pass, that I will have touched 1 million lives. In the same way, I would think for sure, if you haven't done it already, and I suspect you may have touched 1 million lives already, but if you're not also, by the time you pass, you will have touched 1 million lives, and that's a nice legacy.
Yeah, it is. Places you've been, you seem to, and we don't have to list, we'd be here just for an hour listing, but the major areas that I think you've had influence, Australia, Italy, and the biggest one now I think is Spain.
True.
Can you talk a little bit about each of those experiences?
Sure. I was giving a 1-hour lecture at an AOA meeting. I don't remember where it was exactly. I don't remember the topic, but someone came up to me after Dr. Stephen Leslie, a great optometrist from Australia, I'm sure you know him very well. And he said, how would you like to come to Australia to lecture? I had never done an international lecture before. And he said, what you'd like you to do is come for, and give 2-day lectures in all of the 5 cities. And you can have 5 days off in between, and it sounded like a great deal. So the problem is I didn't have coverage in my practice to come for 5 weeks.
Right.
So I got in touch with someone named Carl Hillier, and that was a great optometrist in his own right, who had been a referral source. He had been doing some vision training in the Navy, and I brought him into the practice. And he had been there 3 weeks, I think, and I left for 5 weeks with a whole nice staff and a therapist and everything.
Well, that was the yes thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't think it through real well. So my frontal, like many things in life, my frontal lobe damage has been bad in one sense, and a good thing in another sense. So there I am, and I went over to Australia and I lectured in all the major cities, and those are really also my really first experience outside of the United States, and was accepted well. But just by happen chance, again, at an AOA meeting to do the 1-hour lecture, there it was. My first international lecture in Europe actually was in Spain. This is another amazing story. So I'm in California. I get a call from Dr. Arnie Sherman in New York, and saying the American Academy of Optometry meeting is going to be in Anaheim. I'm the director of the symposium. I'm putting together a symposium on yoke prisms. Would you speak for 20 minutes? I don't want to go to the Academy meeting. It's just I don't fit exactly. I don't know. It's just, I don't want to do it. Come on, Bob. No. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So finally I decide to go to Anaheim. I do it. I'm then literally walking out to drive home, and I had a bulletin board with notices, with these little notes tacked up.
Before all the electronics.
Exactly right. So on there is a little scrap of paper. When I say scrap of paper, I mean scrap of paper written on there, wanted. I won't say what instrument right now, but wanted this particular instrument. If you're interested, call this number. I happen to have that instrument. It wasn't working well in my office.
I think I know exactly. It starts with an A.
Yes.
And we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it just was not good. I didn't want to use it.
I had one of those too.
Okay. So I call up this number, no answer. I wait around a little bit. I try again. Someone answers, and in broken English, not very good English, yes, we're very interested. Can we meet tomorrow morning? So I call up Linda. I say, Linda, I'm going to sleep overnight because we have a possibility of selling this instrument because it's an expensive instrument and it's worth sleeping overnight. So the next morning...
The one I had, by the way, was serial number 3. So
okay, I know. So, yes, you paid a lot also. So I meet these 2 women, Marisol Garcia Rubio, who actually run she had a school there, actually, a graduate program there, and her sister, and said, we'd like to buy it. And I told them my feelings towards the instrument, and do you really want to buy it? For sure. And they said yes, and I told them my experiences. And she said, would you bring this over?
Yeah. When you come to lecture.
When you're bringing this over, and she just wants somebody to take it, over there, would you do a seminar? So I said, sure. And out of that came all of the things that happened in Italy, all the things that happened in Spain. Linda and I are godparents to her son, lifelong friendship, everything at this little scrap of paper tacked to a bulletin board on the way out, and that's what opened up all of Spain for me now. And that's probably the area, the country I'm most proud of in terms of having an impact on. In 2 weeks, they're going to have their National Behavioral Optometry Conference, like CODEC, like the COVD meeting, and they're going to get 300 behavioral optometrists from Spain, a country that 1/6 the size of the United States. So it'd be like having 6 times 7. So it would be like having 4,000 optometrists at this particular meeting if you looked at the size of the country.
And you and I know they know how to have fun too.
They do have fun, yes. There's costume parties. They have it's a wonderful meeting. And I've given for sure more seminars there than in any other place. I don't know how many people I've taught there exactly or how many seminars I've given.
You probably have your million there, but...
So I would hope, but certainly I might have been to Spain 75 presentations, 100 presentations, and I just don't really know the number of presentations and seminars I've run in Spain, but that's the country that the most. And then I've done also in Italy, a number of in Italy and other countries around the world, but really the most impact for sure that I've had is been in Spain.
I'd like you to talk a little bit about what volunteerism means to you, because you've given so much of your time, effort, and energy to a lot of things, COVD in particular, but just the essence of what volunteerism really means to you, Bob.
There's for me, phrases and quotes are just very meaningful. I use a lot during my seminars. They've changed my life in various ways. These quotes just have a big impact on me many times. One of the quotes was, volunteering is the rent you pay for the privilege of living on the planet. And I thought, that's nice. So I volunteer for lots of things over the years. Again, I certainly got paid for OEP, but as you know, you can make more in the practice if you give the same attention to your practice as you do going out lecturing. So that was important to me, and then I got involved with COVD, and then just all kinds of volunteering. When I was very, very young, I was very involved with the civil rights movement during the mid to the 60s. Then I got into the anti-war movement during the late 60s, early 70s, and I've just sort of carried that over into optometry in various ways, trying to be volunteering and also being, and I'll use the word in quotes, but militant in terms of trying to change the thinking and the agenda and the conversations regarding whatever I felt was important, whether that was the conversations versus race, the conversations versus about the Vietnam War, and now the conversations concerning behavioral optometry. I was involved with the AOA for about 20 years on various committees as well, to try to exert influence there. I can't say that was my most successful
we all do our part, and
influence.
You never quite know where it's going.
You never know where it shakes out, but certainly in COVD, I've gone through the chairs of COVD, like you have an OEP, and certainly the amount of hours that are put in are not for financial remuneration or anything close to it. To really to try to make a difference. It's like to try to make a difference in the world. I mean, we just to play a part, just to have a part in doing something that's right, that's beneficial for the planet. That when you die, that hopefully the world is a little bit better place because you were on the planet.
I'd like you to talk for a moment and think that, because you and I have been having this wonderful conversation, I want you to think now that you're speaking actually to a group of students, maybe second, maybe third year. They don't know which direction they want to go, what they want to do, what types of services they want to be involved in. Give them a little bit of why you'd like them to consider doing some of the kinds of things that you and I have found so rewarding.
First, I'll move away from that and I'll come back towards it. Find something that you're passionate about in life, and now specifically optometry. So that if, contact lenses, you just can't get enough of contact lenses, they're the most exciting thing in the world to you, and you want to investigate it, you think they have a great benefit to mankind, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. then go for it. Just be a contact lens optometrist, and that's your major field of specialty. That's really what turns you on and excites you. And that's true for pathology as well. I mean, if you really just get excited about path, and that's what really makes you excited. But not to make optometry a job where it's 9 to 5, where it's, oh God, I get up another day of seeing 40 patients, and insurance companies are a problem, and they're cutting the fees for this, and they just raised that, and people want no glasses, and complaining about this, that, and the other thing. Because what happened to me early, Paul, and what happens, I think, to every student who comes to the COVD meeting, is they see that there's something different about people who come to these meetings or to OEP meetings like the IPO meeting. There's an enthusiasm. People are not complaining about, what their insurance, this insurance plan's cutting me to this, and I have to do 4 exams an hour, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what this area of optometry has given to me, behavioral optometry / visual training, is it's given me more than I've given to it. My life has been so enriched by the experiences I've had with colleagues and now long-term friends, but more importantly, with making a difference in people's lives. There is no other area of optometry, in my opinion, where you get anything close to the personal satisfaction for your heart that you get when a mom says, "You've changed my kid's life. He's not the same kid anymore. He was a defeated kid, now he's excited about learning, he's excited about reading." It's not that I ever have, because these days I like to live well, but there are times that I say, let me give you all your money back. It's just, it was worth it for what you just told me.
Yeah.
But it's really true. For almost every day for 25 years, I got up in the morning and I looked forward to going to work. Wow, I'm going to see Jimmy today, and Billy today, and Maria today, and Janet today in therapy, and I just can't wait to get in there, and I can't wait to do this. And it's also been intellectually stimulating and challenging. I often say in my lectures, if I had to do 20 refractions a day for 1 year, I'd probably commit suicide or leave the profession. No learning, boring. I mean, which is better, number 1 or number 2? You don't need 4 years of optometry school, and I don't think anybody's excited about doing that year after year after year. And this is so dynamic, but it's not for everyone. You have to be someone who wants to commit a little bit more, and it has to be more than just a job. So people who want optometry to be a job, this is not the area. But if you want optometry to be a lifestyle, part of your life, something that's going to excite you, something that's going to give your life meaning in a very strong way, something where you can look forward going to work every day. And also get good remuneration. It's not like you have to do this and be Mother Teresa. Nobody's ever accused me of being Mother Teresa.
No.
But on the other side, that's not why I do it. There's a wonderful optometrist who I know you know for a long time as well. His name was Dr. Hal Wiener. And he also said something that has stayed in my mind for the last 40 years. No, maybe not 40 years, 30 years, 35 years. He said, "I like money, but I love my work." Just like that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. So I just love optometry. I love my work, and it's never boring. If you want all the answers also, this is not an area to go into as well. If you want A equals B every time, not good. But if you're stimulated by figuring out the puzzles and what's another way to do this, and wow, that's something I never thought about. So I go to seminars myself as an attendee, and it's like, wow, that's going to help me to help Billy or help me. So I go to seminars myself as an attendee, And it's like, wow, that's going to help me to help Billy or help me to help Janet.
Exactly.
And I'm always thinking about patients and how this is going to do. So personally, I could not think of a better career than to be a behavioral optometrist. And I'll even say it in a stronger way. I don't think there's an oncologist or a heart surgeon or a neurosurgeon who has saved more lives than I have.
Yeah. That's a wonderful note, and Bob, I want to thank you for spending the afternoon with me, sharing some of the stories and information back and forth. And I hope to those people who watch and listen that they get the inspiration that I could just feel emanating from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you also for being a very good role model for me. As a plug, and I hope this gets in there as well, I attended your seminars and I took so much away. And part of now what I am teaching certainly comes from Amarita and from Ralph Schrock and from Jerry Getman and from Harry Wax and many, many other optometrists. But part comes from you. And I'm a better optometrist because I attended your seminars.
Thank you.